The morning light from Velen Prime's twin suns streamed through the massive windows of Classroom 7, aboard the Galactic Academy station. Students from dozens of different worlds filled the curved seating areas, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some had crystalline skin that caught the light like precious gems. Others had soft fur in shades of blue and purple. A few looked like walking plants with leaves instead of hair. At the front of the room, Professor Timel adjusted his teaching robes with his 4 delicate arms. His crystal-like face reflected the morning light as he looked out at his diverse class. The Valonian professor had been teaching xenobiology for over 30 standard years, and he still felt excited about each new semester. "Good morning, students," Professor Timel said, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of his species. "Welcome to Xenobiology 101. This semester we will explore the fascinating world of life forms across our galaxy." The students shifted in their seats with anticipation. This was one of the most popular classes at the Academy. Young beings from peaceful worlds came here to learn about the amazing creatures that lived on planets they would never visit. Near the back of the classroom, 3 human students sat together. Do-hyun had dark hair and wore the simple blue uniform of the agricultural program. His face was kind, with gentle eyes that often crinkled when he smiled. Next to him sat Mira, a quiet girl with long black hair who rarely spoke unless asked a direct question. She was studying advanced biology and always carried a thick notebook filled with detailed drawings. On Do-hyun's other side was Ji-won, whose bright personality made her popular among all the species. She was training to become a veterinarian and loved talking about animals. The other students in the class often looked at the 3 humans with curiosity mixed with nervousness. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Earth. It was famous as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most species could not survive there for even a few hours. The fact that humans not only survived but thrived on such a world made them fascinating and slightly frightening to their classmates. Today, I want to announce a special project that will help us understand the bond between intelligent species and the creatures they share their worlds with, Professor Timel continued. Each of you will present your homeworld's most common companion species. Excited whispers filled the room. A Quilnari student named Blex raised one of his thin arms. His bubble-like body shifted from pale blue to excited yellow. "Professor, should we bring them in person or just show recordings?" "Excellent question, Blex," the professor replied. "You may bring your companions to class if they can safely travel. For those whose companions cannot leave their home environment, detailed recordings and biological samples will suffice." More excited chatter erupted throughout the classroom. The non-human students began discussing their presentations immediately. Rixel, a Fennec student with soft purple fur and large musical ears, turned to her friend Vorthen. "I cannot wait to show everyone my harmony maker. She creates the most beautiful songs." Vorthen, whose aquatic species required a water-filled mobility suit, bubbled with excitement. "My filter friend makes such pretty light patterns while cleaning our home pools." Behind them, 2 Girthan students compared notes about their tiny grass companions. The small creatures were no bigger than a human thumb and fed only on starlight. They glowed softly and made tiny chirping sounds that helped their owners sleep. "What about you 3? Blex turned to ask the humans. His color shifted to a curious green. "What companions will you present?" The 3 humans exchanged glances. Do-hyun smiled gently. "Well, my family has always kept a guardian for our farm animals. His name is Bekgu." "A guardian?" Rixel's large ears twitched with interest. "What does it guard against?" "Wild animals that might hurt our livestock," Do-hyun explained. "Bears, wolves, wild boars, things like that." The classroom fell quiet for a moment. The alien students tried to process this information. Most of them came from worlds where the largest wild animals were about the size of a human fist. The idea of creatures large and dangerous enough to threaten farm animals was difficult for them to imagine. "Your companion fights other animals?" Vorthen asked through his water suit speaker system. "Only when necessary," Do-hyun said quickly. "He is very gentle most of the time. He loves playing with children." Mira spoke up for the first time that morning. "I have horses back home. They have been with my family for many generations." "What do horses do?" asked a small Delcanian student whose body looked like living metal. "We ride them," Mira said simply. "They carry us places and help us work." This created another moment of confused silence. The aliens could not understand why anyone would need to be carried by another creature. Most of their species had developed advanced transportation technology, precisely because they were too small and fragile to travel long distances on their own. Jiwon decided to join the conversation. I work with rescue animals at a clinic. We take care of cats, dogs, rabbits, and sometimes larger animals too. Rescue animals. Plex's color shifted to confused orange. Animals that were hurt or lost, Jiwon explained. We heal them and find them new families. Your animals get lost? The concept seemed strange to the alien students. Their companions were typically small, gentle creatures that stayed very close to home and never wandered far. Professor Thymel cleared his throat to regain the class's attention. These discussions are exactly what makes this project so valuable. We will all learn about the wonderful diversity of companion relationships across our galaxy. He moved to the front board and began writing the assignment details. Your presentations should include the biological characteristics of your companion species, their role in your society, and the nature of your relationship with them. You have 2 weeks to prepare. A Zentorian student raised her hand. Her body looked like a collection of beautiful flowers that moved together. Professor, are there any restrictions on what types of companions we can present? Professor Thymel waved dismissively with one of his 4 hands. Bring whatever best represents your world's companion relationships. I trust all of you to use good judgment. As the professor continued explaining the project requirements, the non-human students began making excited plans. They talked about gentle creatures that made beautiful music, cleaned their environments, or provided soft comfort. Their companions were small, peaceful beings that existed mainly to make life more beautiful and pleasant. The 3 humans listened quietly to their classmates' discussions. They began to understand that their idea of companion animals might be very different from what their classmates expected. Should we warn them? Mira whispered to her friends. Do-Yun considered this. The professor said to bring whatever represents our world best. These are our most common companions. Jiwon nodded in agreement. Maybe it will be good for them to learn about different types of relationships with animals. As the class ended and students began filing out, Blex approached the human students. His color had shifted to friendly yellow again. I am very excited to see your presentations, he said. My shimmer creates the most beautiful rainbow patterns when she is happy. She feeds only on clean air and positive emotions. That sounds wonderful, Do-Yun replied sincerely. I am sure everyone will love meeting Shimmer. What does your Baekgu eat? Blex asked curiously. Meat, mostly, Do-Yun answered casually, and he weighs about 40 kilograms. Blex's color immediately shifted to shocked white. 40 kilograms? His voice went up several octaves. Of pure meat eater? He is not that big compared to other guardian dogs, Do-Hyun said, not understanding why Blex seemed so surprised. Some breeds are much larger. Blex made a small squeaking sound and quickly moved away to join his other classmates. Within minutes, excited and worried whispers began spreading throughout the group of non-human students. As the 3 humans gathered their belongings, they noticed their classmates giving them nervous glances. Jiwon looked confused. Why do they seem scared? She asked her friends. Mira shrugged. Maybe they have never heard of large companion animals before. Do-Hyun picked up his bag and headed toward the door. Well, they will learn something new. That is what school is for, right? The 3 humans left the classroom, completely unaware that they had just planted the seeds of the biggest panic in Galactic Academy Station history. Behind them, their alien classmates huddled together in worried groups, trying to understand how anyone could share their homes with creatures that weighed 40 kilograms and ate meat. Professor Thymel finished packing his materials, pleased with how engaged his students seemed about the assignment. He had no idea that in 2 weeks his peaceful xenobiology classroom would become the center of the most chaotic, cultural misunderstanding the galaxy had ever seen. The days following Professor Timmel's assignment announcement buzzed with excitement throughout the Academy Station. Students from across the galaxy worked on their presentations with enthusiasm, the corridors filled with gentle sounds as alien students practiced with their companions or prepared transport containers. In the dormitory section, Blex was carefully adjusting the atmosphere controls in Shimmer's travel bubble. His companion was a delicate creature that looked like a soap bubble filled with swirling colors. She floated peacefully inside her container, occasionally creating small rainbow patterns when she felt happy. Tomorrow the transport arrives with food supplies, Blex told his roommate, a Girthan student named Pip. I ordered the purest filtered air for Shimmer. She will be so excited to perform for the class. Pip looked up from his own preparation work. He was arranging tiny crystals in a small terrarium for his grass companions. The little creatures were no bigger than rice grains and glowed softly in different colors. My little ones have been practicing their light patterns, Pip said proudly. They can spell out words now. Simple ones, but still impressive. Both students paused their work when they heard voices in the hallway outside their room. Through the thin walls, they could hear Do-Hyun talking to someone on his communication device. Yes, Mother, I got the message about Baeku's transport, Do-Hyun was saying in a cheerful voice. Did you remember to pack his favorite sleeping blanket? Good, and plenty of his usual food? Perfect. Blex's color shifted to curious green as he pressed closer to the wall to listen. Tell Father that Baeku should be fine in the station's environment, Do-Hyun continued. The artificial gravity is close to Earth normal. Oh, and remind my little sister that I will send pictures of him meeting all my alien friends. The conversation ended, and Do-Hyun's footsteps moved away down the corridor. Blex turned to Pip with wide eyes. Did you hear that? Blex whispered. His companion is arriving on a transport ship. Mine too, Pip said, confused. What is strange about that? But he was talking about gravity and environment controls, Blex explained. Shimmer needs those things because she is delicate. Why would a companion that weighs 40 kilograms need special considerations? This question made both students pause. Their companions were fragile creatures that required careful handling in specific conditions. But Do-Hyun spoke about his companion as if it were sturdy enough to handle different environments, yet still needed accommodations. The confusion deepened the next day during lunch period. The three human students sat at their usual table in the main dining hall, surrounded by the gentle sounds of alien conversation. The room smelled of various atmospheric gases and nutrient solutions that different species required. Rixel approached their table with her meal tray, her purple fur slightly bristled with curiosity. May I sit with you? I wanted to ask about your companions. Of course, Jiwon said with a welcoming smile. We love talking about animals. As Rixel settled into her chair, her large musical ears twitched with interest. Do-Hyun mentioned yesterday that your companion eats meat. I have been thinking about this and I cannot understand. What kind of meat? Do-Hyun swallowed his food before answering. Baeku likes beef and chicken mostly. Sometimes fish. He needs about 2 kilograms per day. Rixel's ears flattened against her head in shock. 2 kilograms? Every day? He is an active dog, Do-Hyun explained patiently. Guardian dogs need lots of energy for their work. Work? Rixel's voice went up an octave. What kind of work requires so much energy? Mira joined the conversation. Guard dogs protect property and livestock. They patrol large areas, chase away threats, and sometimes fight if necessary. The word fight made Rixel's fur stand completely on end. Fight? Your companion fights other creatures? Only when protecting us, Jiwon said quickly, seeing Rixel's distress. Most of the time they are very gentle. My clinic has several large dogs and they are wonderful with children. Large dogs? Rixel squeaked. There are more than one? How large? Well, Baeku is medium-sized for a guardian breed, Do-Hyun said thoughtfully. Some livestock guardians can weigh over 70 kilograms. Rixel made a small choking sound. She tried to imagine a creature that weighed more than most adult aliens, ate 2 kilograms of meat daily, and was considered medium-sized. The image terrified her. But surely they are contained somehow, she asked desperately. Locked in secure areas? The three humans looked at each other in confusion. Why would we lock them up? Jiwon asked. They live in our homes with us. They sleep in our bedrooms. In your bedrooms? Rixel's voice was barely a whisper now. Baeku has his own bed next to mine, Do-Hyun said warmly, though sometimes he sneaks onto my bed during storms. He does not like thunder. This information was too much for Rixel to process. A meat-eating fighting creature that weighed 40 kilograms slept in the same room as its human companion. And this companion thought it was normal and even sweet. I need to go, Rixel said suddenly, standing so quickly that her chair fell over. I have studying to do. She hurried away, leaving the three humans staring after her in bewilderment. Did we say something wrong? Mira asked. I think she was just surprised, Jiwon replied. Maybe her species does not have large animals on their world. Word of the lunch conversation spread quickly through the non-human student population. By evening, small groups gathered in common areas to discuss what they had learned about human companions. In the Quilnari dormitory section, Blex told his story to a circle of concerned friends. Dohyun said some of these creatures weigh over 70 kilograms. That is bigger than most of us. And they eat meat, added a Zentorian student who had overheard part of the lunch conversation. Lots of meat? Fresh meat. What kind of creatures are these humans keeping? Worried a Delcanian student. And why do they call them companions if they are so dangerous? The questions multiplied as more details emerged. Students who lived near the human dormitory sections reported hearing strange sounds through the walls. Dohyun often talked on his communication device about training exercises, feeding schedules, and something called socialization. What does socialization mean for a fighting creature? Blex asked his friends nervously. Maybe they teach them to fight better, suggested Pip, his small grass companions glowing anxiously in their terrarium. The rumors grew more frightening with each telling. By the end of the week, some students whispered that humans kept actual predators as companions. Others worried that the peaceful academy environment might be destroyed when these creatures arrived. A few concerned students even sent messages to their families back home, asking if they had ever heard of such relationships between intelligent species and dangerous animals. The responses only increased their worry, as most alien cultures had no concept of large, powerful companions. Professor Thymel noticed the change in classroom atmosphere during their regular lectures. Students seemed more nervous, often glancing at the three humans with expressions of fascination mixed with fear. When he asked if everything was well, the alien students assured him they were fine, but their body language suggested otherwise. The breaking point came when Jiwon made an innocent comment during Thursday's class discussion about evolutionary adaptations. It is interesting how different species develop hunting strategies, she said during a lesson about predator-prey relationships. The dogs at my clinic show incredible instincts even though they live comfortable lives now. Hunting strategies? Professor Thymel asked with academic interest. Yes, they can track scents across great distances, work together in groups, and take down prey much larger than themselves, Jiwon explained enthusiastically. Their bite force is incredible too. The classroom fell dead silent. Several alien students made small distressed sounds. Blex's color shifted to frightened white, and Rixel's fur bristled so much she looked twice her normal size. Professor Thymel noticed the reaction but misunderstood it as academic fascination. How interesting, Jiwon. I look forward to learning more about these remarkable creatures during your presentation. As class ended, the three humans left as usual, discussing their upcoming presentations with excitement. Behind them, their alien classmates sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just learned. That evening, emergency messages flooded the Academy's communication systems as worried alien parents demanded to know if their children were safe. The Academy administration assured them that all safety protocols were being followed, but they had no idea what was causing the sudden panic. Meanwhile, transport ships approached the station carrying special cargo from Earth. In climate-controlled compartments, three very different types of Earth animals prepared for their first meeting with alien species. None of them knew they were about to cause the biggest cultural misunderstanding in galactic history. Presentation day arrived with an atmosphere of nervous excitement that filled every corridor of the Academy station. The alien students had spent the morning making final preparations for their companions, while the three humans seemed remarkably calm about whatever was arriving on the Earth transport. Classroom 7 had been rearranged for the presentations. Professor Thymel had set up special environmental controls to accommodate different atmospheric needs. Gentle lighting bathed the room in soft colors that would be comfortable for all species present. The alien students entered carrying their companions in various beautiful containers. Blex held Shimmer's crystalline bubble habitat, which created tiny rainbows as it caught the light. Rixel carried a musical chamber that hummed with soft melodies created by her harmony maker. Vorthan's aquatic companion rode in a miniature version of his own water suit, creating gentle bioluminescent patterns. The three humans entered with simple presentation materials and confident smiles. They had chosen to present using recorded footage first, planning to introduce their actual companions later in the week when they arrived from Earth. Welcome, students, to our companion species presentations, Professor Thymel announced. Today we will explore the wonderful diversity of interspecies relationships across our galaxy. The first presentations followed exactly what everyone expected. Pip showed his grass companions, tiny creatures that fed on starlight and created beautiful glowing patterns. The class watched in delight as the little beings spelled out simple words with their soft light. Rixel presented her harmony maker, a creature that looked like a living musical instrument. It created complex melodies by manipulating air currents through its specialized body chambers. The alien students swayed gently to the peaceful music, their stress levels dropping as the soothing sounds filled the room. Vorthen's filter friend demonstrated its amazing ability to clean water while creating artistic light displays. The creature moved through its aquatic environment like a living jewel, leaving trails of pure, sparkling water behind. Each presentation showed the same pattern. Small, gentle creatures that provided beauty, comfort, or practical services without any capacity for harm. The alien students began to relax, remembering why they loved these cultural exchange projects. Then Professor Thymel called Jiwan to present. "Thank you, Professor," Jiwan said, moving to the front of the classroom with her presentation materials. "Today I want to share information about one of Earth's most popular companion species, cats." She activated the holographic display, showing images of various cats in peaceful settings. The alien students saw small, furry creatures lounging in patches of sunlight and playing with colorful toys. The images seemed almost acceptable compared to their fears from the past week. "Cats have lived with humans for thousands of years," Jiwan explained cheerfully. "They are independent, intelligent, and form strong emotional bonds with their human families." The initial images were reassuring. The alien students saw cats sleeping peacefully, grooming themselves and interacting gently with human children. Perhaps their fears had been exaggerated, but then Jiwan moved to the next section of her presentation. "Cats are obligate carnivores, meaning they must eat meat to survive," she continued. "They have retained strong hunting instincts even as companions." The holographic display changed to show a cat's physical adaptations. Jiwan highlighted the retractable claws designed for gripping and tearing, the specialized teeth for cutting meat, and the flexible spine that allowed for incredible agility. "Their night vision is 6 times better than humans," Jiwan explained proudly. "They can see clearly in almost complete darkness, which makes them excellent hunters." Several alien students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The creature in the images still looked small and harmless, but the detailed explanations of its predatory adaptations were disturbing. The real shock came when Jiwan showed a video of a cat hunting. The footage showed a seemingly lazy house cat suddenly transforming into a focused predator. In one fluid motion, the cat dropped into a hunting crouch, stalked forward with perfect silence, then pounced on a toy with lightning-fast reflexes and deadly precision. Gasps echoed through the classroom. The speed and grace that humans found beautiful appeared terrifying to species whose companions moved like gentle drifting flowers. The alien students watched in horror as the cat gripped its target with sharp claws and bit down with obvious strength. "This hunting behavior is completely natural," Jiwan continued, unaware of her classmates' distress. "Many cats bring gifts to their human families, small animals they have caught during their outdoor adventures." Rixel's fur stood completely on end. "Gifts of dead animals? It is how they show love and care," Jiwan explained warmly. "They want to provide for their family members." The alien students tried to process this information. A companion species that killed other creatures as expressions of affection was beyond their understanding. "But surely humans keep them contained to prevent this hunting?" asked Vorthen through his water suit speaker. Jiwan looked confused. "Why would we contain them? Many cats spend time both indoors and outdoors. They need freedom to express their natural behaviors. You let them roam freely?" Blex's color shifted to terrified white. "While they are hunting?" "Of course," Jiwan replied. "A healthy cat needs exercise and mental stimulation. Hunting games are part of their well-being." The classroom atmosphere grew thick with tension. "Professor." Thymel noticed his students' reactions but attributed it to fascination with such an unusual relationship. Jiwan concluded her presentation by explaining the voluntary nature of human-cat relationships. Cats choose to live with humans rather than being forced into domestication. This partnership has worked because it benefits both species. The idea that predators chose to live with humans rather than hunt them added another layer of incomprehension for the alien students. How could any intelligent species coexist with creatures that killed for pleasure and brought dead bodies as gifts? As Jiwon returned to her seat, the alien students sat in stunned silence. Their gentle companions seemed to sense their distress. Shimmer's colors became muted. The harmony maker's music turned into worried minor keys, and the grass companions dimmed their glow. Professor Thymel cleared his throat. Thank you, Jiwon, for that fascinating presentation. The relationship between humans and cats certainly demonstrates unique evolutionary adaptations. He checked his notes. Next, we will hear from Mira about another Earth companion species. Mira stood and walked to the front of the classroom, carrying her presentation materials with quiet confidence. The alien students watched her with a mixture of curiosity and dread, wondering what other shocking revelations about Earth companions they were about to hear. I would like to tell you about horses, Mira began, activating her holographic display. The first images showed large, graceful animals in peaceful settings. Horses grazing in green fields, standing calmly near farm buildings and interacting gently with humans. The alien students felt a moment of relief. These creatures looked less threatening than the cats, larger but apparently peaceful plant eaters. Horses have been partners with humans for over 5,000 years, Mira explained. They have helped build human civilization through transportation, agriculture, and companionship. The images showed humans riding horses, which created the first wave of confusion among the alien students. They watched in bewilderment as humans climbed onto the backs of these large animals and rode them across various landscapes. Humans ride them? Asked Pip in a small voice. Yes, Mira said simply. Horses carry us to places we cannot reach on foot. They are much faster and stronger than humans. She clicked to the next section of her presentation, showing detailed information about horse capabilities. An average horse weighs between 400 and 700 kilograms and can run at speeds over 70 kilometers per hour. The alien students stared at the statistics in growing alarm. 700 kilograms was heavier than most of their entire families combined. They have incredible strength, Mira continued proudly. A horse can pull loads weighing several times their own body weight. Their kick can generate over 2,000 pounds of force. Enough to kill a human? Professor Thymel asked with academic interest. Easily, Mira confirmed. But horses are generally gentle creatures. Accidents are rare when proper safety measures are followed. The casual mention of deadly force made several alien students make distressed sounds. Rixel's musical ears pressed flat against her head, and Blex's color shifted through several shades of frightened white. Mira showed videos of horses in action. The alien students watched in horrified fascination as these massive creatures thundered across open ground, their hooves pounding the earth with tremendous power. The sound alone was enough to make some students cover their auditory organs. But the most remarkable thing about horses, Mira said, is that they choose to work with humans. Horses are prey animals with strong flight instincts, yet they trust humans enough to let us ride them. She showed images of show jumping, where humans guided horses over high obstacles. The alien students watched in disbelief as humans trusted their lives to creatures that could easily throw them off or crush them. How do you control such powerful animals? Asked a Delcanian student nervously. Mira smiled. We do not control them. The relationship is based on partnership and mutual respect. Horses work with us because they choose to. The concept of voluntary cooperation between such different-sized species was incomprehensible to the alien students. Their companions were similar in size and power to themselves. The idea of trusting a creature dozens of times their weight was terrifying. As Mira finished her presentation, the alien students sat in complete silence. 2 presentations had already shattered their understanding of companion relationships. They still had one more human presentation to endure, and they were beginning to fear what other revelations awaited them. When Deathworlders introduced their pets in class, the aliens panicked. The classroom atmosphere had become thick with tension as Professor Thymel called for Do-hyun's presentation. The alien students huddled together in their seats, many having moved as far from the presentation area as possible. Their gentle companions reflected their owner's distress through muted colors, worried sounds, and dimmed lights. Do-hyun walked to the front of the classroom with calm confidence, seemingly unaware of the fear radiating from his alien classmates. He set up his presentation materials with steady hands while the non-human students watched him with the same fascination they might show a dangerous predator. "Thank you for this opportunity to share." Do-hyun began with a warm smile. "Today I want to tell you about dogs, humanity's oldest and most loyal companions." His first holographic images showed puppies playing together in a sunny yard. The small, fluffy creatures tumbled over each other in what appeared to be harmless play. For a brief moment, the alien students felt a flicker of hope that perhaps this presentation would be less disturbing than the previous two. "Dogs have lived with humans for over 15,000 years, Do-hyun explained. "They have evolved alongside us, becoming perfect partners in almost every aspect of human life." The images showed various scenes of dogs interacting peacefully with humans. Small dogs sitting on people's laps, medium-sized dogs playing fetch in parks, and large dogs walking calmly beside their human companions. The alien students began to relax slightly, but then Do-hyun moved to the evolutionary section of his presentation. "Dogs are descended from wolves, which are pack hunters and apex predators," he said matter-of-factly. "Even thousands of years of domestication have not eliminated their natural instincts." The holographic display changed to show wolf pack behavior. The alien students watched in growing horror as these wild ancestors demonstrated coordinated hunting strategies, taking down prey animals much larger than themselves through teamwork and persistence. "Modern dogs retain many of these instincts," Do-hyun continued cheerfully. "They naturally understand pack hierarchy, territorial defense, and protective behaviors." Rixel raised a trembling hand. "When you say protective behaviors?" "Dogs will defend their human families from any threat," Do-hyun explained with obvious pride. "They are naturally brave and will face danger without hesitation if their pack is threatened." The alien students exchanged terrified glances. The concept of a companion species that would actively engage in combat to protect its owners was completely foreign to their peaceful worldview. Do-hyun's presentation moved to show different breeds of dogs, and this is where the real panic began. He started with working breeds, showing images of dogs that dwarfed the earlier puppies. "German Shepherds are excellent family guardians," he explained, showing a massive dog standing alert beside a human child. "They typically weigh 30 to 40 kilograms and are highly intelligent and trainable." Blex made a small squeaking sound. 40 kilograms was approaching the weight limit of what most alien species could even imagine as a companion. "Rottweilers are wonderful with children despite their imposing appearance," Do-hyun continued, showing an even larger dog. "They can weigh up to 60 kilograms and have one of the strongest bite forces among domestic dogs." Several alien students activated their personal emergency communicators, though they were not sure what emergency to report. "But my family keeps Kangal dogs," Do-hyun said, his voice filled with affection. "They are livestock guardian dogs bred specifically to protect farm animals from large predators." The holographic display showed a massive dog standing in a field surrounded by sheep. The creature was enormous, with thick fur and a powerful build that spoke of incredible strength. "Adult male Kangals can weigh over 70 kilograms, Do-hyun explained. "They are bred to be fearless guardians who will face wolves, bears, and even big cats to protect their charges." The classroom erupted in chaos. Multiple alien students cried out in alarm, others activated emergency beacons, and a few actually fainted from shock. The idea of a single companion animal weighing more than entire alien families was beyond their comprehension. Professor Thymel stood up from his desk, his crystalline features reflecting his confusion. "Students, please calm down. Do-hyun, perhaps you could explain the safety measures." But Do-hyun was just getting started. "Oh, Baekgu is not even that large for a Kangal. He only weighs about 45 kilograms. My uncle has one that weighs over 80 kilograms." Rixel's musical ears were pressed so flat against her head they were nearly invisible. "How do you sleep safely with such creatures in your homes?" Do-hyun looked genuinely confused by the question. "Why would we not be safe? Dogs are loyal and protective. They would never hurt their family. But accidents..." Forthan bubbled desperately through his water suit. "Surely such powerful creatures sometimes cause accidents." "Well, Baekgu did knock me over once when I was 7, Do-hyun admitted thoughtfully. "He was excited to see me after school and jumped up for attention, but he immediately started licking my face to make sure I was okay." The image of a 45-kilogram predator knocking down a human child and then licking the child's face was the final straw for many alien students. Several more activated emergency beacons. while others simply stared in shocked silence. The most important thing to understand about dogs, Do-hyun continued, is their incredible loyalty and intelligence. They can be trained for hundreds of different jobs. He showed videos of dogs performing various tasks, police dogs apprehending criminals, search and rescue dogs finding lost people, military dogs detecting explosives, and therapy dogs providing comfort in hospitals. These jobs require dogs to make independent decisions, Do-hyun explained. They must be able to assess threats, track scents across great distances, and sometimes engage in combat when necessary. The word combat sent another wave of panic through the alien students. Pip's grass companions had stopped glowing entirely and were huddled together in their terrarium. Shimmer had retreated to the very center of her bubble habitat, her colors completely drained. But surely, Professor Thymel said, his voice strained as he tried to maintain academic composure. These are specialized working animals, not typical companions. Do-hyun shook his head. All dogs have these capabilities. The difference is just in training and socialization. Even small pet dogs retain their protective instincts and pack loyalty. He showed his final video, which he had intended as a heartwarming conclusion to his presentation. The footage showed Baekgu at home, demonstrating his daily routine with Do-hyun's family. The alien students watched in complete horror as this massive predator moved freely through a human home. They saw him playing gently with small children, eating from a large bowl filled with meat, and sleeping peacefully on a bed next to humans who seemed completely unafraid. Baekgu has been with our family since he was 8 weeks old, Do-hyun said warmly. He is not just our guardian, but our family member. He sleeps in my room, follows me around the farm, and gets excited when I come home from school. The casual tone with which Do-hyun described living intimately with a creature that could kill him without effort was incomprehensible to the alien students. Their companions were small, gentle beings that provided comfort and beauty. The idea of sharing living space with something designed for combat was terrifying. Blex raised a shaking hand. What if he becomes angry? What if he decides not to protect but to attack? Do-hyun looked puzzled by the question. Why would he attack his family? We raised him with love and care. We fed him, trained him, played with him. He knows we are his pack. But the capability is there, Forthan pressed desperately. The teeth, the strength, the predator instincts. Yes, Do-hyun agreed simply. That is what makes him such a good guardian. But those same instincts make him protective of us, not dangerous to us. The alien students stared at him in complete incomprehension. They could not understand how humans could be so calm about living with creatures capable of killing them. The voluntary nature of the relationship made it even more confusing. These animals chose to protect humans rather than hunt them. As Do-hyun concluded his presentation and returned to his seat, the classroom fell into stunned silence. Professor Thymel looked around at his students' distressed faces and made a decision. Perhaps we should take a break, he suggested weakly. This has been quite a lot of information to process. But the damage was done. The alien students had learned that humans shared their homes and lives with creatures that were essentially tamed predators. The 3 presentations had shattered every assumption. As the break began, emergency messages flooded the Academy's communication systems. Concerned alien parents demanded explanations for the distress signals coming from their children's personal communicators. The Academy administration tried to calm the panic, but they had no idea what had caused such widespread alarm. In the classroom, the 3 human students sat together, bewildered by their classmates' reactions. They had simply shared information about their beloved companions, unable to understand why anyone would find such relationships frightening. The alien students huddled in groups as far from the humans as possible, trying to process what they had learned. Their peaceful worldview had been completely disrupted by the revelation that somewhere in the galaxy, an entire species lived in harmony with creatures that could kill them at any moment. The presentations were supposed to celebrate the diversity of companion relationships across the galaxy. Instead, they had created the biggest cultural misunderstanding in academic history. The break period that Professor Thymel had called did nothing to calm the situation. If anything, it made things worse. The alien students gathered in nervous clusters throughout the classroom, their whispered conversations filled with fear and disbelief about what they had learned. Blex huddled with his Quilnari friends in one corner, his color shifting rapidly between frightened white and confused orange. Did you hear what Do-hyun said about combat training? They teach these creatures to fight. And the size. whispered Pip, his grass companions barely glowing in their terrarium. 70 kilograms of pure predator living in their homes. Rixel's purple fur had not relaxed since the presentations began. Her musical ears twitched nervously as she spoke to her Phoenix classmates. They sleep in the same rooms as these creatures. They trust them around their children. The conversations were overheard by students from other species, spreading the panic beyond the immediate classroom. Soon, alien students from different classes were gathering outside Classroom 7, trying to understand what had caused such distress among the xenobiology students. When Professor Thymel called the class back to order, the atmosphere had become even more tense. Several alien students had moved their chairs to the very back of the room, while others requested permission to attend the rest of the presentations via remote viewing from the safety of their dormitories. "I think we have had enough cultural exchange for today," Professor Thymel announced, hoping to end the chaos before it got worse. Perhaps we should postpone the remaining presentations, but his announcement had an unexpected effect. Do-hyun raised his hand with a concerned expression. "Professor, I am sorry if we upset our classmates," he said sincerely, "but I think there might be a misunderstanding about our companions. Maybe we could show some videos from home to help explain better?" The alien students reacted to this suggestion with immediate panic. The idea of seeing more footage of these dangerous creatures was terrifying. Several students actually stood up as if preparing to flee the classroom. No, Professor Thymel said quickly. "I think we have had enough demonstrations for now." But Ji-won was already pulling out her personal communicator. "It will just take a moment to connect to my clinic's security cameras. My coworkers are probably doing afternoon treatments right now." Despite Professor Thymel's protests, Ji-won managed to establish a connection to her clinic on Earth. The main holographic display activated, showing a large room filled with various animals and human caretakers. The alien students stared in complete horror at what they saw. The screen showed multiple dogs of different sizes moving freely around the clinic. Some were being examined by humans, others were playing together in a large open area, and several were interacting with human children who appeared to be visiting. "There is Borum," Ji-won said happily, pointing to a young woman on the screen. "She is treating a German shepherd that was injured in an accident." The alien students watched as Borum calmly handled a large dog that was clearly in some discomfort. The creature could have easily overpowered the small human, but instead it sat patiently while she examined its injured leg. "And look," Ji-won continued excitedly, "that is Mr. Kim bringing his daughter to visit the animals. She loves coming here after school." The screen showed an elderly human man with a small girl who could not have been more than 6 years old. She was petting a massive dog that was lying on the floor, its head resting peacefully in her lap while its tail wagged slowly. Rixel made a strangled sound. "The child is so small, the creature could swallow her whole. That is Daeun, our therapy dog," Ji-won explained proudly. "He works with children who are afraid of medical procedures. He is specially trained to be extra gentle." The alien students watched in disbelief as more children entered the clinic area. The dogs greeted each child with obvious pleasure, their massive tails wagging and their expressions friendly. The children showed no fear whatsoever, climbing on the dogs, hugging them, and playing games with them. "This is impossible," Forthan bubbled through his water suit. "Those creatures could kill everyone in that room in seconds. Why would they want to hurt children?" Ji-won asked, genuinely confused by the question. "Dogs love children. They are naturally protective of young humans. The concept of predators being protective rather than threatening toward the most vulnerable members of a species was incomprehensible to the alien students. Their understanding of predator behavior came from nature documentaries about wild animals, not domesticated companions. Mira decided to help by connecting to her family's farm. "Let me show you Beku's daily routine. Maybe that will help you understand." Before Professor Thymel could stop her, Mira had established a connection to the Kim family farm. The holographic display split to show both the veterinary clinic and a large rural property on Earth. The farm scene showed Do-hyun's younger sister, Sumin, playing in a yard while a massive dog watched from nearby. Begu was even larger than the alien students had imagined, with thick fur and a powerful build that made him look more like a small bear than a dog. "There is my sister with Begu," Do-hyun said warmly. "She is only 8 years old, but she has never been afraid of him." The alien students watched in complete terror as the small human child ran directly toward the enormous predator. But instead of attacking, Beku's tail began wagging excitedly. When Suman reached him, she threw her arms around his massive neck in an enthusiastic hug. Several alien students made distressed sounds. The image of a tiny human child embracing a creature that could crush her without effort was beyond their ability to process. "Watch this," Do-hyun said proudly. Suman is teaching him a new trick. On screen, the little girl held up a treat and gave Beku a command in Korean. The massive dog immediately sat, then lay down, then rolled over completely before sitting up again. His tail wagged throughout the entire sequence, and his expression was one of obvious pleasure at pleasing his human companion. "Creature that size should not be able to move so quickly," whispered a Delcanian student. "Or be so obedient," added Pip nervously. The demonstration continued, as Suman played a game of fetch with Beku. The dog bounded across the yard with incredible speed and agility, easily catching a ball in mid-air before returning it gently to the child's small hands. His bite force could crush that ball completely, Blex observed with horrified fascination, but he is being careful not to hurt her. "Of course he is careful," Do-hyun said, still not understanding his classmate's distress. "She is part of his pack. Dogs are naturally gentle with their family members." The farm connection showed more of the family's daily routine. Beku followed Suman as she did her chores, standing guard while she fed chickens and collected eggs. When she sat down to rest, he immediately lay down beside her, positioning himself between her and the open yard. "He is always watching for threats," Do-hyun explained.
"Even when he seems relaxed, he is alert to any danger that might approach his family." This information made the alien students even more nervous.
A companion that was constantly scanning for threats and prepared to fight at any moment was the opposite of their peaceful, decorative companions. The chaos reached its peak when both video connections showed feeding time. At the clinic, the staff brought out large bowls filled with meat for the dogs. At the farm, Do-hyun's mother appeared with an enormous bowl of raw beef for Beku. The alien students watched in complete horror as these creatures consumed massive amounts of fresh meat with obvious enthusiasm. The sound of teeth tearing through raw flesh was clearly audible through the communication system. 2 kilograms per day, Rixel whispered, her voice barely audible. "Every day. Fresh meat. Where does all that meat come from?" asked Vorthan nervously. "We raise cattle and chickens on our farm," Do-hyun explained casually. "Some for market, some for our own family, and some for Baiku." The casual mention of raising and slaughtering animals for food was another shock to the alien students. Most galactic species had developed synthetic nutrition systems centuries ago. The idea of killing animals for food was primitive and disturbing to them. But the final breaking point came when Suman's mother called her for dinner. The little girl said goodbye to Beku with another hug, then skipped toward the house. The massive dog watched her go, then settled down in the yard to continue his evening patrol. "Does he stay outside at night?" Professor Thymel asked, hoping for some reassurance about safety protocols. "Oh no," Do-hyun replied. "He sleeps in my room when I'm home. But since I'm at the academy, he probably sleeps in Suman's room with her." The image of a 45-kilogram predator sleeping in the same room as an 8-year-old child was the final straw. Multiple alien students activated emergency beacons simultaneously, while others simply stared at the screens in shocked silence. Blex's color had shifted to a sickly green. "Your sister sleeps alone with that creature?" "She's not alone," Do-hyun corrected gently. "She has Beku to protect her. Nothing could get near her room without going through him first." The alien students realized that humans viewed the presence of these predators as safety rather than danger. The creatures that terrified the aliens were seen by humans as protectors and family members. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the academy station, as multiple distress signals overloaded the communication systems. The panic had spread beyond the classroom as alien students contacted their families, reporting that humans lived with creatures that could kill them at any moment. Professor Thymel finally managed to disconnect the video feeds and restore order to his classroom. But the damage was done. The alien students had seen proof that everything the humans had told them was true. Somewhere in the galaxy, an entire species lived in harmony with predators that chose to protect rather than hunt. The 3 human students sat in bewildered silence, unable to understand why their beloved companions had caused such panic. They had shared their most treasured relationships, only to discover that the rest of the galaxy found them terrifying. As emergency personnel began arriving at the classroom to respond to the multiple distress calls, Professor Thymel realized that his simple cultural exchange assignment had created the biggest crisis in Academy history. The revelation that humans lived peacefully with creatures that other species could barely imagine was challenging everything the galaxy thought it knew about interspecies relationships. 3 days after what the Academy administration had officially labeled the classroom incident, Professor Thymel sat in his office reviewing the dozens of reports, complaints, and requests for investigation that had flooded his desk. The panic had spread far beyond his xenobiology class, with alien families across the galaxy demanding explanations about the dangerous Deathworlder practices their children had witnessed. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his office. "Come in," he called, expecting another worried administrator or concerned parent. Instead, the 3 human students entered quietly, their usual cheerful demeanor replaced by obvious concern and confusion. Do-hyun carried a small gift basket, Mira held a formal written apology, and Ji-won clutched her personal communicator as if preparing to show more videos. "Professor Thymel," Do-hyun began hesitantly, "we wanted to apologize for upsetting our classmates. We never meant to frighten anyone." The Valonian professor studied the 3 young humans with his crystalline eyes. As a scientist, he found himself genuinely curious about the disconnect between their obvious love for their companions and the terror those same companions had inspired in other students. "Please, sit down," he said, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. "I am not angry with any of you. You followed the assignment exactly as given, but I confess I am struggling to understand something." The humans settled into their chairs, looking relieved that they were not in trouble, but still worried about their classmates' reactions. "Your presentations showed creatures that are clearly capable of causing great harm," Professor Thymel continued. "Yet you speak of them with obvious affection and trust them with your most vulnerable family members. How is this possible?" Ji-won leaned forward eagerly, her desire to help others understand overriding her earlier confusion. "I think the problem is that everyone else thinks about our companions as wild animals that we somehow forced to live with us." "That is not what happened?" Professor Thymel asked. "Not at all," Mira said quietly. "These relationships developed over thousands of years. Both species changed and adapted together." Do-hyun nodded enthusiastically. "Beku is not a wolf that we tamed. He is a dog whose ancestors chose to work with humans. His breed was developed specifically to be both powerful enough to protect us and gentle enough to live safely with families." Professor Thymel activated his recording device. As a xenobiologist, he recognized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. "Can you explain this process in more detail?" "Dogs evolved from wolves that were attracted to human settlements," Ji-won began. "But only the wolves that could control their aggression toward humans survived to breed. Over many generations, this created animals that retained their protective instincts but directed them toward defending humans rather than hunting them. The key is choice," Mira added. "Horses could easily kill their riders, but they choose not to because the partnership benefits them. They receive food, shelter, and medical care in exchange for their cooperation." Professor Thymel was beginning to understand. "So these relationships work because both species benefit and both participate willingly?" "Exactly," Do-hyun said. "Beku protects our family and livestock because we are his pack. We provide for all his needs because he keeps us safe. Neither of us could survive as well alone." "But what about the capacity for harm?" Professor Thymel asked. "Your classmates are terrified because these creatures could choose to hurt you at any time." The 3 humans exchanged glances, and Ji-won pulled out her communicator. "Could we show you something else? I think it might help explain better." Despite his recent experiences with human video demonstrations, Professor Thymel nodded. Ji-won connected to her family's home, where her parents were having dinner with several relatives and their children. On the screen, a large orange cat wandered into the dining room, where a human baby was crawling on the floor. The alien professor tensed, remembering the hunting videos from the previous presentations. But instead of stalking the vulnerable infant, the cat approached gently and began grooming the baby's hair with careful licks. "That is my nephew Minsu," Ji-won explained. "He is only 10 months old. Tiger has been taking care of him since he came home from the hospital." The video showed the cat positioning himself between the baby and the adult's feet. ensuring that no one accidentally stepped on the crawling infant. When the baby tried to pull Tiger's tail, the cat simply moved away rather than using his claws. The cat recognizes the baby as a pack member who needs protection, Professor Thymel observed with growing understanding. All our companions do this, Mira said. They extend their protective instincts to every member of their human family, especially the youngest and most vulnerable. Do-hyun activated his own communicator to show the farm again. This time, the video focused on Baeku interacting with a group of small children from neighboring farms who had come to play. The massive dog lay on his side while the children climbed on him like a living playground, his tail wagging as they used his thick fur to hide behind during games. "He is being so careful," Professor Thymel murmured, watching the dog hold perfectly still despite having several small humans pulling on his ears and tail. "He knows they are young," Do-hyun explained. "Adult dogs naturally adjust their behavior around puppies and human children. They understand that young ones do not know better and need patience." The video showed one of the visiting children accidentally stepping on Baeku's paw. Instead of reacting aggressively, the dog simply moved his foot and gently nudged the child away from the potentially dangerous area near his large paws. Professor Thymel sat back in his chair, his crystalline features reflecting the growing light of understanding. These creatures choose to suppress their natural abilities in order to protect those they consider family. "They do not suppress them," Mira corrected gently. "They redirect them. The same instincts that make them dangerous to threats make them safe for their families." "But how do you know they will not change their minds?" Professor Thymel asked. "How do you trust such powerful beings?" Ji-won smiled warmly. "The same way they trust us. We could abandon them, stop feeding them, or hurt them in many ways. But we choose not to because we love them. They choose not to hurt us for the same reason. It is mutual respect," Do-hyun added. "We understand what they are capable of, and they understand that we could make their lives difficult if we wanted to. But neither of us wants to hurt the other." The professor was beginning to see the fundamental difference between human relationships with their companions and those of other galactic species. While most aliens kept small, harmless creatures for beauty or comfort, humans had formed partnerships with beings that could be dangerous but chose not to be. "Your classmates cannot understand this because their companions pose no potential threat," he observed. "There is no choice involved in keeping a creature that cannot harm you." "Exactly," the three humans said almost in unison. Professor Thymel activated his communication system and sent a message to all his xenobiology students, requesting their return to class for a special session. "I think it is time for your classmates to learn the full story," he said. 2 hours later, the classroom was filled with nervous alien students who had only agreed to return because of Professor Thymel's assurance that no new videos would be shown. They huddled in groups as far from the humans as possible, their companions reflecting their continued anxiety through muted colors and worried sounds. "Students," Professor Thymel began, "I have spent the afternoon learning something remarkable about human relationships with their companions. I believe our initial reaction was based on a fundamental misunderstanding." Blex raised a tentative hand, his color a cautious yellow. "Professor, we saw the videos. Those creatures are clearly dangerous." "Yes, they are," Professor Thymel agreed. "But that is precisely what makes these relationships so extraordinary." He activated his presentation system, showing a simple diagram comparing different types of companion relationships across the galaxy. "Most of our species form relationships with beings that pose no threat to us," he explained. "We choose companions that are smaller, gentler, and completely dependent on our care. These relationships work because there is no risk involved." The alien students nodded, understanding this familiar pattern. "But humans have formed relationships with creatures that could harm them but choose not to," Professor Thymel continued. "This requires a completely different type of bond based on mutual trust and benefit." Rixel's ears perked up slightly. "But why would they take such risks?" Do-hyun answered gently. "Because the partnership benefits both species. We provide food, shelter, and medical care. They provide protection, companionship, and help with work that humans cannot do alone. The remarkable thing," Professor Thymel added, "is that these relationships have been so successful that both species have evolved to support them. Dogs have developed better communication with humans. Humans have developed better understanding of animal behavior." Mira stood up slowly, watching her classmates' reactions carefully. Could we show you one more video? I think it might help you understand what we mean by choice. The alien students tensed, but Professor Thymel nodded encouragingly. Mira connected to a horse rescue facility where she had worked during school breaks. The video showed a large horse that had been mistreated by previous owners. Human workers approached the frightened animal slowly, speaking in gentle voices and offering food. The horse initially backed away, clearly afraid of human contact. This horse was hurt by humans before coming to the rescue facility, Mira explained. He could easily kill any person who approaches him. But watch what happens. Over several minutes of footage, the alien students watched as the horse gradually began to trust the human workers. The humans never forced interaction, instead waiting for the horse to approach them. When the animal finally accepted their touch, his entire posture changed from fearful to peaceful. He is choosing to trust them, Professor Thymel observed with wonder. Even after being hurt by humans before, Mira confirmed. This is what we mean by voluntary partnership. Every day our companions choose to continue these relationships. Ji-won activated her communicator to show her clinic's morning routine, but instead of focusing on the large dogs that had frightened her classmates, she showed the moment when the animals first saw their human caretakers arriving for work. The alien students watched in amazement as creatures they had been taught to fear displayed obvious joy at seeing their human partners. Tails wagged, cats purred, and horses nickered with pleasure as their caretakers approached. They are happy to see the humans, Pip observed with surprise. Of course they are, Ji-won said warmly. They love their human families just as much as we love them. The final video came from Do-hyun's family farm, showing Baeku's reaction when Do-hyun's transport arrived for a school break. The massive dog ran toward the transport with obvious excitement, his entire body wiggling with joy when Do-hyun emerged. The alien students watched as the intimidating predator transformed into an affectionate companion, pressing against Do-hyun for attention and following him around the farm like a devoted friend. When Do-hyun sat down to rest, Baeku immediately positioned himself as a living backrest, supporting his human with obvious contentment. He chose to be with Do-hyun, Forthan bubbled slowly through his water suit, even though he could choose to leave. Our farm has no fences that could contain him if he wanted to go, Do-hyun confirmed. He stays because this is his home and we are his family. Professor Thymel looked around the classroom, watching as understanding slowly replaced fear in his students' expressions. Class, what we have learned today represents a completely new model of interspecies cooperation. These relationships work not in spite of the animal's power, but because of it. Blex's color had shifted to thoughtful blue. The trust goes both ways. The humans trust the animals not to hurt them, and the animals trust the humans to continue caring for them. And both species have benefited enormously from these partnerships, Professor Thymel added. Human civilization was built with the help of these companions, while the animals have spread across the entire planet and live better lives than their wild relatives. Rixel's fur had finally begun to relax. It is still frightening to think about sleeping in the same room as a predator. But that predator has chosen to be a protector instead, Mira pointed out gently. The same abilities that make them dangerous to enemies make them perfect guardians for families. As the class session continued, the alien students began asking more curious questions rather than fearful ones. They wanted to understand how these relationships had developed, how humans learned to communicate with such different species, and whether similar partnerships might be possible on their own worlds. The 3 human students answered patiently, sharing stories about the daily life with their companions and explaining the training and care that maintained these remarkable bonds. By the end of the session, the atmosphere in the classroom had completely changed. While the alien students still found the human companions intimidating, they no longer saw them as threats. Instead, they began to appreciate these relationships as examples of cooperation that had exceeded anything previously known in the galaxy. Professor Thymel concluded the class with an announcement that would change xenobiology studies forever. I am recommending that the Galactic Biological Sciences Conference invite our human students to present their findings. What we have learned here represents a new field of study, cooperative evolution between species of different threat levels. As the alien students filed out of the classroom, many approached the humans with apologies for their earlier fear and requests to learn more about these remarkable relationships. The panic had been replaced by scientific curiosity and genuine respect for what humans had accomplished. In the weeks that followed, the Academy became a center for interspecies relationship studies. Researchers from across the galaxy came to learn about the human model of companionship, and several species began exploring whether similar partnerships might be possible on their own worlds. The three human students found themselves at the center of a scientific revolution, sharing their simple love for their animal companions with a galaxy that had never imagined such relationships were possible. What had begun as a routine class assignment had revealed that humans possessed something truly unique: the ability to form bonds of trust and mutual benefit with beings powerful enough to destroy them, but who chose instead to protect and love them. The final message in Professor Thimal's official report summarized the discovery perfectly. Humans have demonstrated that the strongest relationships are not those without risk, but those where both partners choose every day to honor their trust despite their capacity to harm each other. In doing so, they have created something beautiful that the galaxy has never seen before: love without fear, partnership without domination, and strength used in service of protection rather than conquest.